Hi, this is George from Fame Music Radio, and you're listening to The Business Side of Music.
Success in the music business begins with a dream, a vision. This podcast will give you, the listener, the insight and tools to turn that vision into a reality. Meet the industry professionals who work day by day behind the scenes, helping to make those dreams come true. Welcome to the business side of music.
Hey, this is Bob Bender, and you're listening to this episode of The Business Side of Music. In the studio today, co-host, co-producer, Vinny Ribas. How you doing?
Howdy, sir.
Vinny's the creator, founder, CEO, chief cook and bottle washer of Indie Connect, who's one of our proud sponsors of the show, Music Side of Business, or Business Side of Music. Someday. In the studio today, a very wonderful lady. You got to meet her earlier this week. Robin Earl, who is a voice coach, does vocal production, artist development. Robin's known globally for finding solutions to vocal issues quickly. Her client credits include Disney, HBO, The Tonight Show, that's very cool in itself, Colgate Country Countdown, The X Factor, and American Idol. Robin's own vocals are featured on HBO, Disney, NBC, ABC, and various films. She coaches at her Nashville studio, also by telephone and Skype. Robin, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah, great. You lead quite the storied life, I guess. How did you get into this business?
Well, originally as a singer. I've been singing since I was 5 and just always loved music. Something I try to impart to singers is that feeling of just the joy of singing. I've sung all my life, started writing music with a friend in the garage at age 5, and have just been singing all my life. So professionally, I sang for quite a few years with Gary. We moved to Los Angeles. We started writing for film and TV. I've been in Nashville coaching for over 20 years, and just find that I can really connect with people on helping them find their best voice.
One of the things that I discover when working with talent, and young talent, of course, they're learning, but you get into some of these more established artists they've had record deals, they've been performing for years, and their voice isn't what it used to be. Is that someone that you can help?
Yes, and that's pretty common, actually, is that feeling of my voice isn't what it used to be. And what I like to explore with them is what those things were going on when it was the way they wanted. Sometimes they were in better physical condition. Sometimes they've just repatterned physical, they've created throat tension, they've created some placement issues, they've lost their support. So we go back and find out what was working and why on a physical level. And one thing I like to do is teach singing as a sport, because most people have some physical activity that they love. Some people like to dance, some like to do yoga, swimming, basketball. And I try to find that out. And if somebody's really into basketball, I find out what they can take from their core strength. Every sport has use of your core strength. So sometimes it's just a matter of connecting the core strength to the breathing to get that foundation back that they lost. Very often it's a physical breathing connection that they don't have that they used to. I worked with a person one time years ago who did both singing in college and he did football in college, and he was having trouble running out of air, and this is when I first discovered that this really was a good connection for people, because he was having a lot of tension with his singing, yet when I asked him about his football yell, he would go, ho, 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 and he had this big voice, and it was just like there was his breathing and connection and support. So if you can tell somebody that they have an advantage by the physical activity that they know and love already, because the physical part of it is usually a joyous thing, that they can transfer that joy over to their singing. And people, the reason they like to sing is because it's joyous and happy, or because it expresses an emotion, or because they can connect with an emotion with somebody else. So It's all that flow of, joy of life or connection. Even if it's a sad energy, they might, need a connection with the sad part of things.
So you just brought up two things. First of all, singing as a sport. That is the coolest analogy I think I've ever heard.
Yeah, I love that.
And that, with that, it makes perfect sense. If you're an athlete, a football player or whoever, you would think that they're in prime condition. Mm-hmm. But, the voice is a part of the body, the vocal cords. So, obviously that needs to be taken care of in tip-top shape. Did you find that surprising, or?
Well, a lot of times when people do refer to their voice and they point at their throat, I have the feeling that they're thinking about singing from just their throat and not from their whole body. And it works much better if you're using your whole body, your support, your relaxation in your throat, your placement, so that you're more efficient as that's your instrument. So you are an athlete. If you're going to be an athlete in a sport, you need to be in good shape. If you're a singer, you do your vocal warm-ups, you do all the preparation, but if you really want to, keep your physical self in good shape. If you're a guitar player, you pay attention to your posture and what issues are going on there, so you're not creating carpal tunnel and throat tension and everything. In fact, I'm teaching some workshops with Angela from Music Strong, and we're addressing the physical issues of singers and the problems that singers and musicians have, because she works with musicians. So I think that physical component is really good.
And then I guess the other aspect that you brought up is, using your whole body when you sing. I guess a lot of singers, especially if they haven't had formal training, they don't think from that aspect. I mean, I've been in the business a long time. I've never thought about, using your whole body when you sing. So if you have someone that comes in, my wife and I have a good friend who's country artist, recording artist, had several hits. Voice isn't what it used to be. Is that something that, I don't know if it's a correct word, so help me here, mm-hmm. but is that something that is trainable? Is that something that, even in that point in their life, in their career, that would help them? Sure. Is a lot of it a rethinking process?
Yes.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's reframing, but a lot of it is just retraining. For example, just more knowledge about how the rib cage and lungs are working together, how the diaphragm works, and the support that's going on. And a lot of this, my desire for doing this is because for years and years I had voice lessons and I was told to use my diaphragm, and I had this image that the diaphragm was in the front going in and out, and my 8th teacher said, "My goodness, you're not even breathing right." So, between yoga and some other breathing techniques, just got this idea that the sports training was really good. But like if somebody would come in, I'd go through the physiology of what's going on and how they can improve their breathing by actually know what's going on.
That's really interesting, because what I find when somebody has never taken voice lessons, they think of a vocal coach as somebody who's going to help them just kind of have a stronger voice and maybe stay on pitch, or I just need the stamina to be able to do 4 hours or something like that. But you're taking it to a whole nother level. You're making it a part of their entire existence, really, and taking care of their body and knowing what's going on in their body. I find that so fascinating.
Some of it is there's what I call air management. Like you can blow all your air out in 1 second, or sometimes I can do 5 or 6 alphabets on one breath. I mean, like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, E,
it through one.
So, but that's a trained thing. And I think I learned that in swimming because we used to swim underwater. We say, okay, can I go to the end of the pool in one breath?
Right.
And so we had these challenges as kids growing up. How long can you hold your breath? So air management was kind of a natural thing to me. And then in yoga and all that just seems part of it.
Is part of that mind over body?
It's a combination.
Yeah.
I think the physical aspect of it, but I think the way you think about it, like sometimes people think that they can't reach a note, and a lot of what's going on in that case is they're tensing their throat and neck and thinking up. I've done in some past classes in college even where we would think about the low notes being grounded and being down. But I think the main thing, if people like to think of high notes, if they think that those notes are reachable. So even if they're high, they're not reaching up to them. Their air is going up, but they aren't. You know, you watch Bruno Mars, you watch, a lot of singers, and he's a great example of somebody who enjoys the movement and the physical part of it. Goodness, you see these people singing and dancing at the same time, and it's just all that flow.
This is Bob Bender, and you're listening to The Business Side of Music.
You're listening to The Business Side of Music.
Fame Music Radio, serving up a potpourri of independent music to every nook and cranny throughout the internet universe. From Roku TV to TuneIn, the world is listening. FameMusicRadio.com.
You're listening to The Business Side of Music.
We're back here with this edition of The Business Side of Music. Bob Bender, your host. Vinny Ribas, co-host. And we're talking to Robin here with regards to vocal training the correct way. Vinny, I think you had a question?
Well, not a question, but an observation. Because I remember listening to one vocal coach talking about, you see a singer, like they'll raise their arms to do something, or, they make gestures, and they make them seem really natural, but there is a reason for them. There are different things that you can do physically when you're on the stage that help you to reach a note or extend your breathing. Am I right about that?
Yes, that's very true. And people have different gestures for different things that help them. Sometimes it's to do with breathing, sometimes it's to do with projection, but it's also on stage to do with the expression. And that's something that's so important is getting past the idea that you have to sing note to note. Sometimes people are just too careful of it, and if they think about the expression of the song as a sentence that they just thought of, it's more of an acting thing. I just wrote this song. Whether they did or not, if they just express it in that way, then it just comes out as a performance, like an acting thing, or it just becomes part of them and is more natural.
When a songwriter is writing a song, and they write it for themselves, if a singer, we noticed this last night. We went to an event, and songwriters events, and one of the songwriters, in fact, mentioned, "I hear this song in this key. This is the key I wrote it in, but the artist that recorded it in an entirely different key." And the songwriter said, "So we're going to try it in that key and see how it works." Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I mean, I want to say it was probably several keys higher than maybe the songwriter should have been.
I will always ask the singer for their best key. Sometimes guitar players are more comfortable in playing the song that they're best on guitar. But I think the guitar player would need to defer to the vocalist because that's what the message is going to be. And I think the comfort level of the range of the vocalist is that's priority for me, whether the singer is playing their own guitar or somebody else.
A lot of cover bands have that challenge where they're trying to do everything in the original key, and the singers just can't cut it, or they just, they have to do it, but they're just not comfortable there. It's, what do you recommend for a singer who's coming out there and wants to do Adele songs or something like that, and just doesn't have that yet?
I think it's really useful for people to learn to write Nashville number system chord charts so that instead of having a specific key, they can play in any key. So if you put a chord chart in front of a band and they can read in any key, they should be able to make adjustments. You can try 3 different keys in a rehearsal, say what works. So both for musicians and for singers, I think it's good to think in terms of keys that can be adjusted and sometimes there needs to be compromise. If the guitar player, the singer might be able to sing in D, whereas the guitar player might not like, or the piano player might not like C sharp. So, sometimes there's some compromise, whereas you don't want to have the singer way out of their range, because that's not as good.
What I like about the number system too, for those that don't know about it, I mean, it's basically taking your chords and putting it into numbers that when the musicians know the scales of the different keys, they can just read the numbers and change the key at any time. And I've worked with a lot of singers who would say, normally we do this in D, but my voice is fatigued today, so let's do it in C sharp, or let's do it in C or B or whatever. And to be able to do that and feel comfortable there and have your charts so that they're set up that way, that's can be a lifesaver for a singer.
Yes, I agree, definitely. And it is just, it's the same as in classical music. It's 1, 4, 5, 1. It's just the basic Roman numerals, only it's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's just the way it's notated.
Right, and that's a whole nother class.
Yeah,
right. There you go.
It definitely is. And not to get off topic, but that is interesting because Nashville is known for that. When you work in studios in other parts of the country, they do talk about the Nashville numbering system. So a singer, we just touched on it briefly here, whose vocals are strained. We were talking to an artist who played at a county fair circuit. 56 shows, 57 shows over 17 days, something like that. No vocal strain. But let's have an hypothesis here and say that you're an artist and you have 56, 57 shows over 17 days, and about halfway through, your voice starts to, it's just worn out. You're doing 3 hours a day of singing. What's the best course of action at that point? Is there throat code, or not talking between, or what do you do?
Those are both good, and I've been in that situation. Gary and I had 28 straight days of 6-hour shifts, 7 days a week in Nevada, and
it had to be a casino. I didn't say 6-hour shift. It had to be a casino.
Yeah.
I've done so many. I did 77 days straight at the Bonanza Casino in Reno.
Oh my gosh, yes. And so I think you have to just be kind to yourself and not expect 100% first. If you know that you have that many days to do, you've got to pace yourself. You've got to give 70 or 80% instead of if you were doing a 2-hour concert. You need to focus a little better. You need to make sure you're warmed up. You need to not talk as much during the day. All those things.
I have a question. I'm going off topic here, but it fascinates me that somebody like you now and a lot of vocal coaches are doing their lessons via Skype or by phone. And I can't even picture trying to judge somebody's vocals over the phone.
Well, it's interesting because before Skype, I did teach a lot over the phone to people in many states. And I think why that is doable is because I've done so much recording with artists and have listened to them and seen them at the same time so that I can tell them exactly what they need to do to adjust what they're doing. So I can see somebody's placement and I can hear somebody's placement. So if I'm hearing somebody, I can tell them physically how to adjust their placement, how to change their breathing, how to relax their throat without even seeing them. In fact, I worked with a woman in Kansas City and she said she was running out of breath. So we talked about what happened. She said it's been 5 years ago, and she just could not get a good breath. And I said, what happened 5 years ago? She said, well, I had twins. And it turned out that she had so much tension still in her solar plexus and her breathing muscles that she could not relax them. So within an hour, we had gotten her some breathing exercises that was creating a better breath for her. She didn't even know that tension was there after all those years. So sometimes it's just finding out, what's going on and what can work.
And you have clients now all over the world because of that.
Yes, I work with a lot of people in Canada, in Europe, South America, Philippines. It's really fun. I work with a woman that lives on a boat off of Australia, and she is wonderful. And it's fun to be on Skype all of a sudden, and you're on a boat. And it's sort of like I get to teach this lesson and this person and be with them in their space. Or you're in Switzerland, or you're in Canada, and you get to, kind of feel it's sort of fun to just feel like you're in Canada for the day and you get to share that time with that person. It's really a great way to meet people and connect and have that joy of singing that's so universal all over the world.
Awesome.
This is Bob Bender with Vinny Ribas, and you're listening to The Business Side of Music.
You're listening to The Business Side of Music.
Hi, this is Vinny Ribas, the founder of Indie Connect. Our goal is to ensure that you have the knowledge, the tools, skills, resources, and connections that you need to develop a profitable and long-lasting career in music. One way we do this is through these Business Side of Music podcasts. I'd also like to invite you to check out Indie Connect magazine, our free multimedia online publication packed with practical interviews and advice from music industry experts. Go to www.indieconnectmag. That's www.indieconnectmag.com. Let us walk with you and guide you every step of your musical journey.
Next up, the Indie Artist Spotlight, brought to you by Reverb Nation.
Hi, this is Spencer.
And Sequoia.
And we are Spencer and Sequoia. We are two singer-songwriters that collaborate and harmonize to achieve a chill, jazzy pop sound that you can hear on our latest single, Best Thing, available on Reverb Nation.
The stars are looking like the moon sprinkled through the sky, and the sky itself, it looks pretty fine, and the clouds are full, even though it's still time. The birds are singing, make the sounds look pretty, and I see reflects this big city, and the lights made by men will never outshine your room. My memories are always, you're the best thing that's ever happened to me. Come to my heart, you know everything, and I want to know all about you. Ooh, no, you're everything that I'll ever need, even when life gets so frivolously complicated. They say they'll never see the wind, but leaves dance, oh, they spin with that wind. So can't you see it? They say that they'll never see you, but they'll always look outside their windows, not a picture painted by the fingers of a man, 'cause it can never stand for you. Oh, you know you're the best thing that's ever happened to me. Come to my heart, you know everything, and I want to know all about you. Oh, no, you're everything that I'll ever need, even when life gets so frivolously complicated.
We are Spencer and Sequoia, and we're members of Reverb Nation.
You're listening to the business side of music.
Yeah, we're back here with the business side of music with Vinny Ribas. Glad to have in the studio today Robin Earl talking about vocal coaching. You know, I'm not a singer, and I'm learning a ton of stuff here. So, wealth of information.
When I was performing a lot, they told me I had to sing. I had a duo, and you can't just listen to one person all the time. If I really study a song, I can be close.
Okay.
That's as close as I can get. I don't have perfect pitch by any means, and you know, sometimes just following the melody, I'll make it up as I go along because I don't memorize it that well. We've been talking a lot about the power in your voice and the strength and everything, but can you help somebody like me just be better at being on pitch?
Yes. I think pitch, most people can hear pitch pretty well, and they know if they're off or not. Some people cannot, but most can. Pitch to me is a matter of getting the breathing going so that you're learning the amount of support and getting the throat relaxed, but also the placement is super important, because if your placement and your mouth shape is working well, then your pitch is going to be more on. Otherwise, it's sort of like if you're a diver and you go 1, 2, 3, dive. Well, your 1, 2, 3 needs to be pretty good. So you have to have the leading up notes to that top note be in the right place. So a lot of it is placement and figuring out where those shapes need to be and where those notes need to be so that they're going to be on pitch. And that's very learnable and very adjustable.
That's good to know, because they used to pull out the duct tape. Literally, I mean, they would shut my microphone off because I'd be singing at the top of my lungs. No, we can't have that.
We actually used to do that with a band that I toured, but it wasn't the guy's vocal mic. We turned his guitar off.
Oh,
so
been there too. Had that band.
Here's a question. Someone that can't sing but wants to, they just don't have pitch. I mean, they can't, you know, cats in a metal bucket sound better. Is that someone that can, I mean, can you teach them to be able to hear what they're doing wrong?
This is very interesting, and most people, it comes pretty quickly with. I have had a couple of people, one in particular, that it took a much longer time and it was actually like teaching an adult to play piano versus a 5-year-old to play piano. One thing I think about, if you've heard a language when you're little, you have those connections built in. If you've heard music when you're little, you can usually hear it enough to replicate it. And sometimes it's just explaining to somebody that the inflection is just greater than when you're speaking, because everybody goes up and down when they're speaking in most languages. So just how to create pitches, and they can do ear training and they can, you know, create a better flow with that. But I've just had so few people that, you know, maybe a couple of people that really had difficulty even hearing it enough to be able to learn it. But I think it's more like learning a language. If you've heard that letter, you know, some accents, if you notice that there are people who know, you know, 4 or 5. I met a woman one time that knew 12 languages, and we were visiting her in Mexico City, and I said, you have no accent in English? How do you know all this stuff? She said, well, I went to boarding school and I learned 12 languages by the time I was 5 years old. And you know, there's a lot of bilingual kids that are very fluent in several languages when they're little, whereas, you know, if you try to take Spanish in high school or French in high school, it can be harder, not always. But
was for me.
Well, yeah, it was for me too. So I just think that, and it's a combination of that learned ability plus the desire to do it. I mean, if people are really, you know, I've worked with people that have been here that have accents and they want to come in and study 2 hours a day to work on their accent reduction. And they really have a desire to do it, and they really pay attention and they work at it. So a lot of it is the desire to, and the time to put in.
Yeah, and I think that's a big factor too. Is not only the desire but putting the time in. I think that's so important for everybody. I mean, guitarists, woodshed, bass players, and keyboard players, vocalists need to do the same thing.
Right.
So one of the things I noticed on your site and also on you mentioned briefly is yoga. Different forms of exercise, meditation work better than others for vocalists in training?
It depends totally on the person. Some people, they can get that connection with yoga or swimming, sometimes basketball, martial arts. I've worked with several guys that work downtown that, playing country music. And I said, what's your sport? Weightlifting. So we work on simulated weightlifting to work on their core. And so it just depends on the person. And what I like to do is get a 20-minute flow exercise thing going. I just put on my favorite music because I like to dance. So I decided one day, well, I have done so many sports in my life. I've got like 20 things that I have loved in the past. And so I kind of put them all into this little workout routine and just play. I think if you play and do it joyously, that it's much more fun.
What is the prime age? And maybe there isn't one, but is there a prime age to really start working with someone, obviously younger versus an older, because you don't have to break as many bad habits, I would assume. Is there a point where they're too young?
I think it is really, really up to the person. I mean, I have worked with, you see Mommy and Me classes for gymnastics or for singing that are fun for preschoolers. I've worked with 5 and 6 year olds that have recorded, and they've done a great job. I've worked with 10 and 12-year-olds who have recorded albums. We had a 12-year-old who we still work with now that she's 27, and she was doing Live at the Apollo when she was 12 years old. So I think it really depends on the person. I have people that are 16 that feel they're too young, or, so it's just all over the board. I had an 80-year-old man the other day that was just delightful. He was retired, and he was taking guitar lessons, and he was working on singing, and people of any age can, it's like any sport. If you're going to take tennis, or if you're going to study anything that you love, a language, whatever, if you want to work at it, then get somebody to help you work at it.
So if people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way?
RobinEarl@me.com or Robin@RobinEarl.com, either one.
So RobinEarl.com is your website?
Yes, RobinEarl.com. And there's one at Voice Coach Robin. I have 2 right now. VoiceCoachRobin.com.
Robin, thanks for being on the show today. It's always the fastest 30 minutes, it seems to be. We never set a time clock on this, but it's always good to get some great talent in, such as yourself, and a lot of information, good information. I think I'm going to start singing now. So
a lot of wisdom, yeah, which is different than information. A lot of people can impart information, and it's kind of like going to school, but when there's a wisdom behind it and a strategy behind it, it's awesome. You did. That was great.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. I like the technical part, but I like the other part too, and I'm really good with diction and technique and all that too. But this is the fun part.
Well,
I can tell.
We're glad you're on the show. Thanks for being a part of it.
Thank you.
If you're interested in learning more about our show, drop us a line at musicpodcast@mail.com. That's musicpodcast@mail.com. If you have any suggestions of persons or topics that involve the music industry you'd like to hear about on our podcast, please feel free to let us know. You can follow us on Facebook on the Business Side of Music podcast page. You can also find us on Twitter at Music Business Podcast. Also, if you're listening to this podcast through iTunes, post a review on what you think of our show. This is Bob Bender, and you've been listening to this edition of The Business Side of Music.
The Business Side of Music is the creation of Tom Sabella and Tracy Snow and is produced by Bob Bender for Bob Bender Productions. Co-producer for the show is Vinny Ribas. The Business Side of Music is recorded at Music Dog Studios in Los Angeles, California and Nashville, Tennessee. Production sound designed by Keith Stark. Voiceover and promo by Lisa Fuson.